The November rain soaked through my suit, Tom Ford, though they never bothered to notice, as I handed another set of keys to a valet attendant outside Maxwell Towers. My father's 65th birthday celebration was in full swing on the 50th floor, but here I was, relegated to the parking garage because my brother Thomas thought it was amusing. "Make yourself useful for once," he'd sneered, pressing a valet ticket into my hand. "Since you can't afford a car of your own, at least you can park other people's." If he only knew about my collection of vintage Aston Martins, or the fact that in exactly 47 minutes, this entire building would legally belong to me. I'm Marcus Maxwell, though in certain circles I'm known as Holdings, the mysterious investment group that's been quietly acquiring prime real estate across Manhattan. But to my family, I'm just the disappointment who walked away from Maxwell Industries 5 years ago to find himself. Another Bentley pulled up. Inside, one of my father's board members barely glanced at me as he handed over his keys. These were the same people who would be receiving a very different kind of notice tomorrow morning, one announcing their new landlord. "Marcus," my sister Victoria's voice cut through the rain. "Daddy's asking why you're not helping with the cars. It's the least you could do after everything he's done for you." Everything he'd done for me. Like cutting off my trust fund when I refused to take a VP position at Maxwell Industries. Like telling potential investors to avoid my amateur business ventures. Like pretending I didn't exist whenever the family was featured in the society pages. "Just doing my part, Victoria," I said quietly, watching her designer heels navigate the wet pavement. "Someone has to make sure all these important people can park properly." She sniffed, adjusting her Cartier bracelet. "Well, hurry up. Thomas is about to announce Maxwell Industries' acquisition of the Peterson Group. It's a $300 million deal. Not that you'd understand numbers that big." I suppressed a smile. The Peterson Group acquisition wasn't happening. I bought it through one of my shell companies last week. Just another piece in my carefully constructed plan. "Speaking of acquisitions," Victoria continued, checking her reflection in a car window, "have you heard about Maxwell Towers? Some mysterious buyer is apparently interested. Daddy's furious. He's tried to buy this building for years." "Really?" I kept my voice neutral. "How interesting. Not that it matters to you." She waved her hand dismissively. "You can barely afford rent in that tiny apartment." My tiny apartment was actually the penthouse of a building I owned on Park Avenue, but they'd never bothered to visit. Just like they'd never bothered to look closely at the quiet empire I'd been building while they thought I was failing. The rain intensified as another luxury car pulled up. Through the lobby windows, I could see the party in full swing. My father holding court, Thomas bragging about deals he hadn't actually closed, Victoria showing off her latest husband to anyone who would listen. My phone buzzed, a message from my lawyer. "All documents ready. Transfer of ownership proceeds at 9 p.m. sharp." I checked my watch. 8:13 p.m. In less than an hour, the biggest real estate deal in Manhattan this year would be announced. The mysterious Holdings would be revealed as Marcus Maxwell, and my family would learn that the son they'd banished to the parking garage now owned the ground beneath their feet. A Tesla pulled up, and I recognized the driver, Sarah Chun, head of the city's largest real estate news platform. She was here to cover the party, but in 47 minutes, she'd be breaking a very different story. "Mr. Maxwell," she nodded, hiding a knowing smile. "We'd met last week to plan the timing of tonight's revelation." "Still helping with the cars?" "Just being useful," I replied, playing my part, though I suspect the evening might get more interesting soon. Above us, Maxwell Towers stretched into the rainy night sky, its illuminated windows reflecting the power and prestige of the Maxwell name. By morning, that name would mean something very different. My phone buzzed again, final confirmation from the bank. The $1.2 billion transaction was ready to process. In the garage behind me, I could hear the valets parking Bentleys and Rolls-Royces, their owners completely unaware that their carefully chosen parking spots would soon belong to the man handling their keys. "Ladies and gentlemen," my father's voice boomed through the lobby speakers. "Please join us on the 50th floor for a special announcement." I handed the last set of keys to the valet team leader and straightened my rain-dampened tie. 8:30 p.m. 30 minutes until everything changed. The elevator ride up was a lesson in invisibility. Board members and business partners who'd known me since childhood stared straight ahead, pretending not to notice the failed Maxwell son. If they'd bothered to read the real estate papers more carefully, they might have recognized my investment patterns over the past 5 years. The 50th floor ballroom sparkled with old money and new ambitions. Crystal chandeliers reflected off designer dresses and family jewelry, while floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the Manhattan skyline. My skyline, though they didn't know it yet. Oh look, the valet boy finally joined us. Thomas smirked from his position near our father. His custom Brioni suit probably cost more than what they thought I made in a month. Did you park all the cars properly, little brother? Everything's exactly where it should be, I replied quietly, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. The same vintage I had waiting in my office downstairs, the office they thought belonged to some mysterious tycoon. Victoria sidled up, her latest husband in tow. Marcus, darling, Thomas is about to announce the Peterson acquisition. Try to look interested, even if you don't understand the complexities. I checked my phone discreetly. A message from my CFO, Peterson Group paperwork finalized. They're officially ours. Everyone gather round. My father commanded attention with practiced ease. At 65, Harrison Maxwell still carried himself like the emperor of a vast domain. Tonight isn't just about my birthday. It's about the future of Maxwell Industries. The crowd hushed expectantly. My stepmother, Evelyn, preened. Her new facelift stretched tight with pride. She'd spent the past 5 years pretending I didn't exist, ever since I refused to let her manage my trust fund. First, my father continued, I'm proud to announce that Maxwell Industries, under Thomas's brilliant leadership, has just acquired the Peterson Group for $300 million. Applause erupted. Thomas stepped forward, straightening his monogrammed cufflinks. This acquisition puts us at the forefront of commercial real estate in Manhattan. No one can touch Maxwell Industries now. I took another sip of champagne, enjoying the irony. The Peterson Group acquisition papers in my briefcase told a very different story. And speaking of real estate, Thomas wasn't finished. We're also in final negotiations to purchase this very building. Maxwell Towers will finally be ours. More applause. Victoria squeezed her husband's arm excitedly. Imagine, darling, the Maxwell name right there on the front. 8:45 p.m. 15 minutes until they learned what the Maxwell name really meant. Of course, my father's voice turned serious. Such success requires proper leadership. That's why I'm announcing tonight that Thomas will be taking over as CEO of Maxwell Industries, effective immediately. The room burst into congratulations. Thomas basked in the attention while Victoria pouted slightly. She'd obviously been hoping for a bigger role herself. Some people, my father looked directly at me for the first time that evening, understand what it means to build a legacy. Others, well, there's always valet parking. Laughter rippled through the crowd. I checked my watch again. 8:50 p.m. Speaking of parking, Thomas couldn't resist another dig. Marcus, shouldn't you be getting back downstairs? Those cars won't park themselves. Actually, I said softly, I think I'll stay for this next part. It should be quite interesting. Victoria rolled her eyes. What could possibly be interesting about Dash? Her words were cut off by a commotion near the windows. Sarah Chun had arrived with her news team, cameras ready. What's this? My father demanded. Who authorized press? 8:55 p.m. My phone buzzed. Final confirmation from the bank. The transfer was complete. Mr. Maxwell, Sarah approached with her microphone, though she wasn't looking at my father. She was looking at me. Do you have any comment on Holdings' acquisition of Maxwell Towers? The room went silent. Thomas stepped forward, confusion crossing his face. There must be some mistake. Maxwell Industries is buying this building. Actually, I said, my quiet voice carrying in the sudden stillness, that's not quite accurate. 9 p.m. Right on schedule. The massive screens around the ballroom lit up with breaking news. Maxwell Towers sold to Holdings. Mysterious buyer revealed, A.S. Marcus Maxwell. The silence in the ballroom was absolute. My father's face had turned an interesting shade of purple, while Thomas's champagne glass slipped from his fingers, shattering on the marble floor. "Impossible," Victoria whispered, her perfectly manicured hand clutching her husband's arm. "Marcus can't even afford." "Can't afford what, sister?" I pulled out my phone, projecting Holdings' portfolio onto the ballroom screens. "The $1.2 billion purchase price? Or perhaps you're referring to the other 12 buildings I've acquired this year." The displays showed property after property across Manhattan, prime real estate that Holdings had quietly accumulated over the past 5 years. Buildings that Maxwell Industries had tried and failed to purchase, now all under my control. But the Peterson Group, Thomas stammered, his earlier confidence evaporating. "We just bought." "No, you didn't." I corrected him gently, removing the acquisition papers from my briefcase. Holdings acquired the Peterson Group last week, which means those negotiations you've been bragging about were actually with me. My father finally found his voice. You're Holdings? The company that's been outbidding us on every major property." "Surprised, Dad? You shouldn't be. After all, you taught me everything I know about real estate. Well, except for the part about actually succeeding at it." Sarah Chen's cameras were capturing every moment. "Mr. Maxwell, how does it feel to now be Manhattan's largest independent property owner under 40? "Marcus," my stepmother Evelyn stepped forward, her smile suddenly warm and maternal. "Darling, why didn't you tell us? We're family." "Family?" I raised an eyebrow. "Like when you convinced Dad to cut off my trust fund. Or when you told the country club I was working as a janitor." More screens in the ballroom lit up with financial data. My quiet empire wasn't just real estate. While they'd thought I was failing, I'd built a conglomerate spanning technology, renewable energy, and yes, parking garages. Current market value of Holdings, $8.4 billion, Sarah announced to her cameras, making Marcus Maxwell the youngest real estate tycoon in New York history. Thomas lunged forward, his face red with rage. "This is a trick. You must have stolen the money, or, like you stole from Dad's development fund last year." I interrupted quietly. "The $50 million you embezzled to cover your gambling debts? Don't worry, I bought that debt too. Consider it a birthday gift to Dad, saving the family from public scandal." The color drained from Thomas's face. Behind him, our father staggered slightly, reaching for a chair. "As of 9 o'clock tonight," I continued, Holdings owns not just this building, but the majority of Maxwell Industries' commercial rental properties. Your tenants now pay rent to me." Victoria's latest husband, a minor real estate developer himself, was already pulling out his phone, probably checking if his properties were among those I'd acquired. They were. "Mr. Maxwell," Sarah pressed, "what are your plans for Maxwell Towers?" I smiled, walking to the floor-to-ceiling windows. "First, the name stays. After all, it is my name too. But there will be some changes. Starting with the rent." "You're going to raise our rent?" Thomas sputtered. "You can't. Actually, I'm lowering it by 30% and implementing green energy upgrades across all properties. The days of squeezing tenants for every penny are over." My father finally spoke again, his voice barely a whisper. "Why? Why do this tonight on my birthday?" "Because 5 years ago tonight, you told me I'd never understand real business. That I was embarrassing the Maxwell name. Remember?" I turned to face him. "You said I should park cars since that's all I'd ever be good for." The screens switched to live feeds of other Maxwell properties across the city. One by one, crews were already changing logos and signage. The Maxwell name remained, but under new management. "Oh, and Thomas," I added, "those merger papers you've been working on with Asian investors? They pulled out last week, after they found out about the embezzlement. But don't worry, I'm keeping all current employees. Unlike some people, I believe in second chances." Sarah's cameras captured all, the proud family's realization that their failure now controlled their destiny, the slow understanding that every insult, every dismissal had been witnessed by the man who now owned their world. "Sir," my assistant appeared at my elbow. "Your helicopter is ready on the roof. The Tokyo markets open in an hour." "Thank you, James." I straightened my still damp suit. "Oh, And please make sure everyone here gets home safely. Their cars are all exactly where I parked them. Victoria made one last attempt. Marcus, please, we can work something out. Keep it in the family. But I'm keeping it in the family, I replied. I'm just redefining what that means. Starting tomorrow, Maxwell Industries will prioritize sustainable development, affordable housing, and ethical business practices. The Maxwell name will stand for something more than profit. As I headed for the elevator, my father called out one last time. Son, I was wrong. I stopped but didn't turn around. Yes, you were. Happy birthday, Dad. Consider this your wake-up call. Sometimes the best business lesson comes from a valet. The helicopter waited on the roof, its blades cutting through the rain. Below, my family was still standing in the ballroom, watching their empire transform under their feet. Tomorrow, they'd wake up to find themselves working for the son they'd dismissed in buildings they'd failed to buy under terms they couldn't negotiate. But tonight, as Manhattan sparkled beneath me, I thought about that younger version of myself, determined to prove that success doesn't have to mean sacrificing principles. The Maxwell name would indeed become legendary, just not in the way they'd planned. Tokyo office on the line, sir, my assistant said as we lifted off. They're eager to discuss the new development projects. I looked down at Maxwell Towers one last time, remembering all those nights parking cars and building my dream in secret. Tell them the future of real estate just changed, and it started in a parking garage. The helicopter banked east, leaving behind a family learning that true power isn't in who sits at the head of the table, but in who quietly builds while others boast. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just success. It's succeeding with the integrity they thought would make you fail. And as for parking cars, I think I'll keep doing it occasionally. After all, some of the best deals in Manhattan are made in parking garages by people who understand that every great empire starts with being willing to do the work others think is beneath them.